Joining us now to review some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is a Rice News analyst, Emmanuel Ifeni. Good morning, Emmanuel.
Good morning, Ruben. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning.
Good morning.
Ayo Myro Ese. You're welcome to the morning show.
Much. Thank you.
Yes, that's how we roll here. Now, we start the review with this day, Nigeria's newspaper of record. The lead story, Kwankwaso, I will never step down for Atiku Abubakar. Promises to renegotiate nation's debt. Says APC PDP 24 years responsible for insecurity woes. Insists on restructuring. Pledges to employ 2 million police military. Nigerian Guild of Editors want issue-based campaigns. Yes, Dr. Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, the presidential candidate of the NPP, New Nigerian People's Party, yes, was on the platform provided by the Nigerian Guild of Editors to sell his proposals to Nigerians. And of course, part of what came out there was asked about the speculation, whether there are pressure on him to step down for Atiku Abubakar, the presidential candidate of the PDP. Well, he said nothing of that will happen. He's in the race for real. And yes, clearly, Kwankwaso, one of the front runners, but many still see him as somebody with just Kano as a stronghold, with sprinkling of support from nearby states, Katsina, Jigawa, but he believes he has the national spread, and as such, he's in the race. But his promises, restructuring, one of them, restructuring becoming a familiar theme in this campaign. Atiku wants to restructure. Now, Kwankwaso promising to restructure Nigeria. The last time we had a promise of restructure, 2015, it never happened. Even when the ruling party set up a committee, that's the APC now, to look at the issues of restructuring ahead of the 2019 election, we never heard anything about that anymore. So another round of promises, restructuring. Of course, the apostles of restructuring will believe that we need to restructure Nigeria for more effective federation, devolve power to the regions, the subnationals as it were, and have in place state police. Yes, on security, Kwankwaso saying he will recruit 2 million police, military. Rufai, you ask the question, how are you going to pay for that? But the money has to come from somewhere, but not with an economy that is in bad shape, as we'll see in the course of this review. Now, another story in the front page of this day, G5 governors meeting disrupted in Lagos amid chant of Atiku, Atiku, Atiku. The governors, the 5 governors who are having issues with the presidential candidate of the PDP were in Lagos. Of course, it's become familiar to see them move from state to state where they hold sway. But in Lagos, of course, the patron of the G5 is Chief Olabode George, one-time national vice president, chairman of the PDP. Now you want to ask, what led to the disruption at that meeting? Because the party members were told that they will vote for other positions except the presidency and governorship, and they were not going to have any of that. And the party faithfuls there started chanting Atiku, Atiku, because they have a presidential candidate in the PDP. You've not left the PDP, you're telling the people not to vote for on presidential election, they will not vote for PDP. Well, you want to ask, what is the game Chief Bode George is playing? Many have blamed him over the years for the PDP never making it in Lagos State. But this time around, he has even opted to support the candidate of another party, Labour Party candidate. Yes, he once said on this program that the father of the Labour Party candidate was his classmate at St. Gregory's. Well, so much for party loyalty, but Chief Body George has been part of what these 5 governors have been angling for. Iyoshe Ayu should resign so that somebody from the south can be the chairman of the party now that they have a northern presidential candidate. Now we'll look at other newspapers reporting this story. The New Telegraph newspaper, PDP crisis, G5 governors, George, others meet, float integrity group, say window for reconciliation remain. We are faced of the struggle. Our leaders here are backing us, Makinde. Now, changing of the nomenclature, integrity group. What difference does it make? Perhaps G5 not fanciful, because mischief makers can call it a gang of 5. Integrity group, what does not translate to, but they're still saying window of reconciliation wide open. So it's over to Atiku Abubakar, the presidential candidate, how he can reconcile positions with these governors while insisting Ayu must go. Now, below the photograph, the front page of the New Telegraph, 2023 cabal military officers lobby to replace service chiefs posts with $1 million. CSO alleges. It's an allegation. Now, the Nation newspaper, yes, the Nation newspaper, the lead story, 2023, G5 governors allies to sustain anti-Atiku move. Aggrieved PTP governors, chieftains meet in Lagos. Wike, Makinde, Otom Ikpeazu insist on Ayu's sack. Now, the Vanguard newspaper, how politicians still threaten credible polls. INEC source, IREV, Ratex will check rigging. How Nigerians can key in immediate access to uploaded polling unit results by voters is key. What voters must know and do to navigate the IREV sphere. Patriotic INEC staff averted rigging plot in Anambra governorship poll. Yes, INEC getting prepared with technology in place. INEC has been reassuring that the 2023 general elections will be free, fair, transparent, and credible. And we are all saying amen to that. But Nigerians have to play their role, be vigilant, go out and vote, collect your PVC, vote for the candidate of your choice. Of course, the photograph on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper, Qatar World Cup opens with fanfare despite criticism. Yes, the biggest sport in the world, the World Cup, has kicked off in Qatar. The next 30 days to be a festival of quality football. Now, the Guardian newspaper, next government to inherit 71.5 trillion debts, liabilities after May 29. Federal government blames oil theft for massive borrowing. Economists prescribe securitization for flexible repayment. Urge government to pursue growth policies. There is so much corruption in bureaucratic process, it says Professor Pat Utomi. Now, huge debt profile waiting for the next president. Well, Kwankwaso has said he's going to renegotiate the repayment terms. Looks like the most reasonable thing somebody has to do if you are elected as the next president of Nigeria. Now, the Daily Trust newspaper, Southeast gets lion's share of natives, controversial recruitment. Northeast, Northwest get lowest. CSOs demand accountability, relatives of board members among recruits. Why we hired more staff. Now, the foreign newspapers quickly. The foreign newspapers. Now, we'll start with the Times of London, the Times. Yes, patients to face long NHS wait for years. Ambulance And accident and emergency target watered down. Patients are facing long waits for ambulances and accidents and emergency care for years to come, as ministers accept there is little hope for hitting targets by next election. But certain category of patients are even worse hit in the UK. The Daily Telegraph reporting cancer toll surges in wake of pandemic. Yes, the cost of the coronavirus pandemic for cancer sufferers is beginning to emerge. Experts fear, as figures show, that hundreds more people than expected are dying each month in England. Since the beginning of September, there have been nearly 900 more deaths in people with cancer. Of course, this will be expected to rise even further. Of course, charities, experts are saying unless government take action, this will continue. There were nearly 230 extra deaths in the worst week recently. Now, the Guardian newspaper reporting COP27 had come to an end. Climate deal still leaves world on brink of catastrophe. Expert warn, alarm over setback on CO2 target. Carbon emission overshadows agreement on damages. Yes, the developed economies making more commitment to cut down carbon emission. But for the vulnerable, the developing countries, able to get that fund for loss and damage. Ruben Rufai and Ayo Mairo Esse, over to you.
So, it just shows what goes on, with COP. They come, they talk. Last year was under Alok Sharma, now it's under a new president. They've had conversations, they've reached agreement. But those things are not cast in stone. Because we remember COP26. Remember what ended it now. Just by December, just at the start of the war, beg your pardon, Russia and Ukraine, Germany had to bolster its coal reserves to start firing to produce energy. So all of that conversation is lost. But at the same time, we should also see some green, possibilities as regards monies being deployed to countries like Nigeria and some other African countries that can act as cap and sink and that can be used for transition. But the question is, how are we going to spend those monies effectively? Because the problem is not today we've been collecting money from international agencies and the likes. Hey, what have we even done with the ecological funds
We've been asking
that we spend within? Let alone now this fund coming from abroad for climate change. How accountable are we going to be? But the matter that is germane to me is this 71.5 trillion. The liability is much. Do you know that this money cumulatively burgeoned from 10 trillion in 2015 to this extent to over 35 trillion? And plus or minus, you still have many encumbrances there. Till date, yes, they have come out to say, okay, they will not securitize the loan over a 40-year period any longer because it's against their books that you can actually securitize what you printed. But the question is, how are we going to pay back the 20 trillion we printed in Ways and Means for CBN? And you see all of these loans have one way or the other effect on inflation. And you can hear what Mr. Mogalu that sat on this seat you were sitting said.
Yeah.
Inflation is a tax the poor will pay. The poor are already paying that tax. In inflation, over 20%, in fact, some people will say that over 20% of inflation is even a wrong figure. That the real figure should be well into the 50% in Nigeria.
Those who go to the market regularly
We can tell you that. So there are problems on ground.
It's very clear that whoever is going to become Nigeria's next president is not coming for a tea party. There is serious work ahead. Now, we've been told the next president is going to inherit 71.5 trillion. So, if you want to be president of Nigeria, you must begin to think about how to address that challenge now. Otherwise, what you will have is what we had in 2015. A new president comes in, and consistently you have this spokesperson saying, oh, this is an inherited problem. No, if you want to be president of Nigeria, you must be able to think out of the box and solve problems. That's one. Number two, as for
especially when the problems are known. They are not hidden problems.
As for COP27, Antonio Guterres put it succinctly when he says, our world is still in an emergency room, that we will need a giant leap to be able to address the climate change change crisis. Why did he say so? Yes, a loss and damage fund has been agreed upon now, but the fundamental issues about greenhouse gas emissions, about fossil fuels have not been addressed. Those fundamental issues were blocked emotionally, if you like, well, maybe strategically, by Saudi Arabia and Russia. And the scientists have told us that, look, we cannot meet that 1.5 degrees centigrade, target in terms of global warming. And if that happens, it means more countries will suffer. What they have done now is some kind of structure to say, if you suffer damages in your area, then of course you get compensated. But we're still far away, from the target. We're still far away from calls for climate justice. Many of the countries are excited, African countries in particular, who think, some money is coming, which their leaders will also have the opportunity to mismanage. But on the long term, there isn't that concrete commitment. In the same manner in which many of the promises made at COP26 in Glasgow, Scotland, have not been met. So that major problem facing the whole of humanity, as Antonio Guterres pointed out after the meeting, that went beyond 40-hour deadline yesterday, as he pointed out.
I just mentioned, I know we're out of time, just two things coming up very strongly here from Vanguard. INEC saw saying politicians still threatening credible polls. I think this is a conversation that we must continue to have in terms of the race to 2023, how we must protect our votes, transparency with INEC, we're using the e-voting, and how this will hopefully give us more credible elections. And of course, the IMF recommendations on some economic reforms. I think this is something else to look into. 15% VAT rate to Nigeria. I know that currently Nigeria at 7.5% has one of the lowest VAT rates across the world. However, as we talked about earlier on when we're looking at the drivers to poverty or preventing that, how we can, the purchasing power of Nigerians, can we afford this?
Well, a tough conversation. Thank you so much, Mr. Tough times ahead, but I believe in the strong spirit of us as Nigerians.